Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I've got an advanced copy of Jupiter's Legacy Requiem, and it's going to come out Wednesday, relatively soon. So when you're listening to this, in just a couple days, on the 16th of June. Now, Jupiter's Legacy Requiem follows up Jupiter's Legacy and Jupiter's Circle. So this was the kind of the current issue, and then the prequel, and this almost, if you think about it, as a trilogy. Requiem again takes a pretty hefty time skip, much like the distance between Circle and Jupiter's Legacy, to kind of let us know what happened to the kids and kind of these families, and what the outcome was from Jupiter's Legacy, which it's branded as the main series, but I think at this point, given kind of the quality of writing of Jupiter's Circle and everything that went on there, this is all kind of a main series. I don't really view Jupiter's Legacy as the series, and then Jupiter's Circle as a prequel, and this is some kind of sequel. It's just, this is three different kind of moments in time that you're getting. This is a 12-issue series, and it's the first thing that people are going to notice is the Jupiter's Legacy, the core series, was drawn by Frank Quietly. It was a beautiful kind of combination of Mark Millar and Quietly, and this one is drawn by Tommy Lee Edwards, which is a very different style. It's nice. I really like the kind of painted effect. It's a little bit more abstract in a couple areas. I love the use of color and some of these pieces. It's really, really nice. But it's going to be definitely a jump for people. But it's interesting. Again, Jupiter's Circle had a very kind of old school, almost nostalgic kind of feel to it with the art. It felt like a bit of the product of the times. If it was a book in the 70s, it had that kind of feel to it. And Jupiter's Legacy by Quietly had very much a, I don't know, 2015 kind of style to it. Quietly was a major artist back then. I mean, still is, but it definitely felt like a book of that time. And Jupiter's Legacy Requiem, this issue by Tommy Lee Edwards, it this painted feel and kind of the use of color and panel design, everything else, it feels like what a kind of future graphic novel could be, from the style of kind of the word bubbles and everything else. It feels like a bit of a future book in a sense of the way it looks. And the combination of all these, I think, is going to be really interesting to see. I think you're going to get an extra little special thing when you put these three volumes together and you read them, because you're going to feel like you're passing through three eras of time. And I think that's pretty interesting. I like Jupiter's Legacy quite a bit. I thought it was one of the strongest Mark Millar books in kind of this new world that he's building. The cards on the table. I really like Super Crooks. I think that was one of his better books. But I like Jupiter's Legacy. However, I like Jupiter's Circle a lot more. And I think the biggest reason is I thought it nailed a lot of kind of the character beats and kind of this dynamic with Sky Fox and just that whole kind of fleshing out of the characters. So that was really powerful. This formation of a new team. It's a bit like if the Justice League was just starting out, and kind of what would Millar's take on it be. I really like Jupiter's Circle. Ultimately better than the core series. Jupiter's Legacy, rereading it down the road, still enjoyed it, but it was a much more straightforward story in the sense that whereas Jupiter's Circle felt like a lot of kind of deep character work was being done, Jupiter's Legacy felt like we were kind of going from A to B with kind of these characters and kind of the betrayal, Walter's betrayal, and kind of all these different pieces. It was an interesting dynamic for sure. So this one, and I'm going to do this review with minor spoilers. I think it's good to go out and read it, but I'll kind of set up at least what the book is going to be. We'll show a couple images on the screen that won't give anything away. It's a good book, and again, if you like the first two, you'll definitely want to pick this up. If you like where these two are going, and in particular, if you like the dynamic of kind of the family and generations and how children kind of surpass their parents, or that dynamic between the two, then you will like this, because it is certainly continuing to play in that park. I think in reading this, it caused me to go back and look at the other two a little bit differently in terms of the storyline that's being set up. So to kind of catch you up, and again, there are some spoilers here, as I mentioned, and if you haven't read these original two series, you probably should. If you have like a passing interest in what I've said, just go ahead and stop the video now, go and read those series. But basically, we had in the book you had Sheldon, the utopian, kind of this father figure with a heavy weight on his shoulders. He was an optimist. He was an idealist. He wanted to do right by the world. He had a very firm code, and he was largely betrayed. And he was, Walter, his brother, wound up, kind of manipulating his son, Brandon, to kill him. And this is kind of the Walter, on the other hand, had a different vision for kind of how heroes could play, and wanted to take a more proactive role. Again, a lot of depth to his character, but he wound up basically, I think, falling prey to his powers to some extent. That Walter basically was able to mentally manipulate George Hutchinson's his girl, and basically take her as his own, and was definitely in that super villain kind of category. So anyway, the crux of this Jupiter's Legacy issue is that Chloe and Brandon are the children of Sheldon and Grace, and both are kind of struggling to meet up to their parents' expectations in very different ways. Brandon ultimately kind of falls prey to Walter, and winds up murdering his father, and kind of going too far, and does a terrible job, and ultimately is defeated by Chloe and Hutch, the father of Chloe's child, and the son of Skyfox, who was this character who became a supervillain. But even those terms are a little weird. And so it's funny, I'm trying to describe this in a very careful way. So this issue picks up sometime later, basically this third generation. So the son of Chloe and Hutch is Jason. And Jason, at the end of Jupiter's Legacy, has superhuman ability, genius level intellect, and is trying to do his best to kind of live back up to this reputation of what a hero should be. So as our comic opens, there's some destruction going on, certainly, and you basically get a threat. This evil villain is going to hold the Earth hostage in order to get what he wants. And we get to see Jason in action. He's grown up now. He's son number one, as they identify, which is an interesting way of describing it, I think, as opposed to Jason. And he of course, saves the day. He just amazing kind of superheroism in terms of what he's doing. And we get to meet the other children who we didn't know existed at the end of Jupiter's Legacy, which is Otto, who has become more of an activist, who is trying to kind of do what he thinks is right for the world. And you see kind of this immediate contrast between the two, between Jason and Otto here, and how they've taken very different paths to do what they think is right, mirroring in some ways the paths of the Utopian and Skyfox. So we see, as this series go in, we see kind of more of the children, more of kind of this how the world has evolved since this third generation, this new legacy has grown up, and from there. It's a lot of character work. So we're basically seeing kind of the other children. We're seeing people who have powers, who do not have powers, and how they're interacting with each other. And we learn that despite kind of this very idealistic end with Chloe and Hutch kind of being this new couple, their marriage didn't last. They both kind of in their kind of separate directions. Hutch is definitely kind of out on his own and struggling to some extent. Very kind of different personality, whereas Chloe has fully adopted kind of her mother's persona and mission, and has headed out into space to kind of do good out in the universe. And so we spend more time with Hutch, who's kind of interacting with other new members of the new generation, and they're once again there's a sense of self-absorption and not evil, but just being out more for themselves. We're kind of seeing some repeat of Jupiter's Legacy and some of the same flaws. Only this time, Hutch and Chloe are older, and while they have taken on the responsibility, some of the children are not. So we see kind of these pieces. Meanwhile, Brandon, who of course murdered his father, is being released from prison now years later. He has largely converted to he's converted to Buddhism, so he's committing to peace. He's recognized kind of the error of his ways, and not just the murder of his father, but kind of how he tried to take over the world, and kind of what he did. Otto and Brandon have a conversation, and basically Otto is trying to urge him to be to take action and to be kind of this activist. It's kind of another person trying to almost not manipulate exactly, but trying to kind of get Brandon to do things for his end. But we're seeing how Brandon has grown. He is saying, young and reckless is something he grew out of, and just advises Otto to kind of steer away from his path. The issue wouldn't be complete kind of in how Millar's style is without some level of twist at the end, and we do get that in this kind of questioning kind of a lot of the origins from this entire book, from all the series. And this comes in the form of this exhuming Walter's body, and Jason is basically he enlists the only daughter of Chloe and Hutch, and Sophie, and they are basically going to look for answers. Sheldon had died, and Jason is kind of looking for more of both the origins and kind of how these other pieces work. He's got questions. I mean, he's a super intellect. He has questions about how things have taken place. So he winds up being able to mentally kind of look back on what happened. With the help of Sophie, he's able to kind of go back to the island where Sheldon and Walter and kind of the original crew found kind of the machine, found the aliens, and there's a massive twist here in everything that happened. And it calls into question kind of the legacy, who these people are, what any of this means. And this is kind of this sense of dread. Things are maybe not as they seem, and it is a pretty major shift, potentially, to the entire story we think we've been told. So that's kind of the big hook for the mystery that I think is going to play out over the next 12 issues. And we get another kind of tease at the end of maybe some people working to take away these powers and also upend kind of the status quo. So a bunch of things are in the mix. I don't know if these 12 issues are going to go straight, or if we're going to get another break, kind of like we did for Jupiter's Circle in the middle. But it's definitely, if you enjoy this series, it's definitely something to dive into. If you never read Jupiter's Legacy or Jupiter's Circle, I'd recommend you start there before you dive into this. I think it's important you read it. Of course, this series is coming out now after the news that Jupiter's Legacy, which did premiere on Netflix, has been opted not to be renewed due to a variety of things. We're hearing some stories come out over that. And that continues to be a massive shame because there's that series ended on cliffhanger, and there's really a lot of amazing things it needed to get to with Jupiter's Legacy that we wanted to see. And now we, in theory, won't, at least for a while. So this is a good series. I'm really struck again by the art style and how it does feel like you have three kind of very distinct books of how this entire world comes to pass. There's a sense of sadness. There's a sense of kind of foreboding in this series. There's, is this generation going to learn from the mistakes of the previous one? These are the questions that we're going to get answered. So all in all, it's a solid book. It's good to read. It's definitely, if you enjoy this world, you're going to be kind of intrigued by some of the bigger things that are coming into here, and some of the new stories are going to be told. And there's a lot going on. It's definitely a little bit more thoughtful, I think, than some of the other series in the sense that there's not just kind of shock violence or random kind of moments that are coming into you. This is a book that is going to cause you to think a little bit, and also look at how generations evolve. So highly recommended. I think it's good. Very interested to see it. I think definitely there will be some people who complain, I think, about the art style, people who liked Frank Quietly, and I mean, who doesn't? But I think the art, the coloring, the package here, it completes this trifecta of the series, and I think that's very, very well done. So interested to see it. Go check it out. I think you will like it. Otherwise, when it comes out or when you get your hands on it, please let me know what you think in the comments below, and thanks for listening.